Just because it's on the radio doesn't mean we have to suspend belief in the evidence of our senses. White Noise by Don DeLillo. But I want to talk about this book, White Noise, Don DeLillo. The first thing that comes to mind when I read this book is Post-Modern Nihilism. Like, it's relatable, you know? It's relatable to the way that things are, but it's like from the 80s or something. It's like so long ago. And it's like weird to get this like sense that like the things that feel so strange and seem so strange right now are just like the way that people have felt for a long time. And like the absurdity of all of it has been going on all that time as well. I don't know, like the first part of the book, it's like it's about nothing. It's about like the nothingness that is life. It's like, it's just all the like absurdities that go along with life and like the things that are happening all the time, like just ad promos and like just weird like catchphrases and like consumerism and buying stuff and just all these things. Then you go through the middle and like there's this like a long event, and then like in the end it's like back to the story again. But then it's like, is anything real? Is anything really happening? Is this story really what it's all about? That's kind of the feeling I got while I was reading this book. And it's not that long of a book, but it kind of took me a long time to read. There's lots of like references to references to references to references to references. It's like about the loss of meaning the main character is going through. He's lost the sense of life. Like he doesn't really understand what's going on anymore, and he fears death. It's about death. Like that's definitely the more like the predominant theme of this book. And he kind of like at the end, this is a spoiler for sure, is that at the end he shoots someone. He goes to the hospital, which he thinks is a hospital, and like they're nuns, he thinks. And he sees them and they're like dressed like nuns and they look like nuns and they look like people who believe in God and Jesus. And he asks one of them about it and she's like, I don't dress this way for myself, I dress this way for other people. So other people think that there are still people who believe in things, even though I don't believe in those things, the nun says. And so it's like, it's totally about the loss of meaning. It's like the meaninglessness of ness. One of the things that I kind of remember or that I liked from the book was that the main character and this other guy, they go to a barn, which is the most photographed barn in America or something. And like, they talk about how like it's not about the barn itself. Like it's not about like people aren't going to see the barn. They're going there for the experience of being a part of the experience. Like they're taking the pictures to be one of the people who takes a picture at that place, not to actually take the picture or not to actually be at the place. And so it's like this loss of like a connection to the real thing and like this abstraction of an abstraction to something else. And one of the other characters, he talks about like the spiritual awakening that he gets from brandless stuff, like plain white labels. He sort of says at the same time, he says colorful brands mean meaning, and like these like white label non-brand brands are like something different. They are spiritually clean because they're not covered with labels and branding. And it's kind of like that's a thing, you know, like so much of the world around us is branded and like is an advertisement and is like something other than what it's supposed to be, right? Like it's supposed to be a bag of beans, it's supposed to be a bowl of soup, but like it's a brand, it's like an identity, it's so many layers on top of that. Like one of the sons, he like questions everything. He's like, he doesn't believe in anything and he has to question everything. And then like, it's like almost when you question something, right? Like it's a reductio to absurdum, you know, like when you start to question things that we take for granted, then they just cease to make sense. We just like keep on reducing them more and more absurdity, and then they're gone. Like so much of what we believe in, so much of what we take for granted, so much of the world around us is like absurd if we actually ask the questions and get to that point of like kind of realizing that. It talks about like the police contacting a psychic to find a man, and the psychic gives like useful information, but it's not to the current case. And then they create all like finds useful information about like all sorts of other cases, but not the one that the police are asking about. And it's like another thing, like it's another idea like about this like absurdity and this meaninglessness. It's like you can find this like information, it's there, but like it doesn't relate to anything that's in front of you. It says families in developing nations are stronger because they don't have facts and they don't have corporate capitalism. Like those are the things that we take for granted as like making our lives meaningful, and like so much of our meaning is derived from like corporate capitalism and like what we believe to be facts. But one of the characters suggests that actually weakens families because they have like all these facts, and like when you have facts then you like reference to things as they are, but then you like reference to something else, and like you kind of lose touch with what you're trying to reach for. The strong power of corporate capitalism is like it takes away our community and it makes us extreme individualists who are just concerned with consuming things. And I know that's probably consumerism versus corporate capitalism, but like corporate capitalism is like this extreme consumerism, but like spread around the world or like everywhere. It's like you go to Japan or you go to like Europe, and like if you get those like corporate, you know, brands, like it's all the same, and it's just like taking away the individuality of the individuals, of their nations, of all the things around the world are just like slowly being erased and collapsed into corporate capitalism. I feel like this book is a criticism of modern life. It's like buying stuff is supposed to create meaning, but like it's saying that that's not true. Like that's totally absurd. That's not real. Sun talks about drinking coffee makes you comfortable, and you shouldn't do anything that makes you comfortable. Maybe discomfort is a problem looking for a solution, and a substance is a distraction. And it's like almost like it's like an escape. It's like we drink coffee when we go to work, and like that's to help us deal with work and to being at work, but like it's comforting us in an absurd situation where maybe we shouldn't be finding comfort. We should be questioning the absurdity of the situation. It's like it's a distraction, and maybe we need to get past that distraction to like look at the real situation that we're in the world as individuals, in like the way that we live our lives. And that is a situation that shouldn't be escaped from. Instead, we should like look into this problem and try and work together to figure out like what's going on, because it does not make sense. There's this crisis that happens. There's like a chemical spill, and they all know, like the family knows that it's going on, and they can see it, and they know that they need to do something about it, but they don't do anything about it. They just sit there and they do nothing. And like that's a lot about like what we do as a society, you know, like we know that there's a crisis ahead of us, but we're not doing anything. We're just kind of accepting it, and we're going with the flow, and we're not doing anything, even though like we really know that there's something wrong. And probably like we're not going to react and do something until someone tells us we need to do something, until like we become aware that there's something that we need to do, even though like we all know that there's this like crisis catastrophe right in front of our eyes coming right for us. There's this like emergency evacuation, and then there's people with armbands that have something related to simulation, like saying it's a simulation. And so like it's like when there is an emergency, like, you know, is it real? And later on they talk about how the sort of the simulation of an experience makes it unlikely to happen. So much of what we prepare for in our entire lives is like, you know, preparing for some sort of situation. And maybe the more we prepare for it, the less we're equipped for it to respond to it, and the less likely it is to happen because we know about it, right? The more we know about something, the less likely it is to happen, because we kind of change the path. We change the way that things are flowing and going. They talk about reading tabloids and about how it explores like mysterious pasts and possibilities. I'm kind of like interested in that kind of a little bit, because like I feel like those kinds of things are ideas that are potentially worth exploring, but they have to be thrown into tabloids to be taken seriously by anyone, and even then they're not really taken seriously, you know? They read a tabloid like it's a fact, and reality seems like fiction, and deja vu is visions of the future that we have not experienced yet. I kind of agree with that a little bit. Like, what is deja vu? And like reality does certainly seem like a fiction, but you know, deja vu is like, maybe that's an alternative reality that we're experiencing, or we're seeing the future before it happens. There's so many things. Like deja vu is a really interesting experience that we kind of just disregard, and I'm sure there's like some scientific reductionist argument for why it's just some brain fart and not anything magical and mysterious, but I think it is still something that's magic and mysterious and meaningful. When things get chaotic, the family is left in a building for like 10 days, and there's no news about the event that they're responding to. It's almost like they were kind of forgotten, and that's like kind of a thing a little bit, you know? It's like when things happen, when like because of like the super hyper refresh rate of events, what's going on in the world, like something happens and we forget about it, and like 10 days later those people are still going through those experiences, but we've totally forgotten about them because we're so like in a hyperloop of like every single day there's new news, there's new events, there's new crisis. When something important comes up, we are always driven to distraction. It's like I was saying before, there's so many important things that are happening right now, and we're just totally distracted by so many other things, like by our cell phones, by the internet, by social media, and all these things are just preventing us from paying attention to the important problems that are really right in front of us. One of the kids makes a comment about mountains being upstate, and the father thinks about it and he can't disprove it, and it's like the words are true, they make sense, they're logical, they're factual based, but are they true? And he can't kind of get out of that like sort of way of thinking about it now that it's been given to him as an example, as a way of seeing things. How do you escape like the programming of the factualization, of the rationalization that you've been filled with your entire life? Like you can't see beyond that. But I really believe that a lot of the things that we believe are true because of facts and rationality, like they're wrong, they're not the facts, but we just believe them. And again, it's like if you reduce them to absurdity, if you ask questions about it, it stops making sense. But so much of it it is we believe it and we think it makes sense and we just kind of follow through with it. Oh, the main character, he goes through the garbage, but he feels like he's spying on himself and his family and everything, and it's kind of weird. It's like this kind of confusing situation. Now that I'm talking about all this, I'm like really thinking about it and I'm rearranging the ideas in my head, and it's actually pretty genius, you know, like the way it's put together. And maybe like I'm already like extreme, like I'm a postmodernist, and like so these ideas aren't so new to me. But yeah, the guy's facing death, and so like he feels like he should embrace it, he should deal with it, and when he does, that changes things. It's a quick flash through of my thoughts about White Noise by Don DeLillo. If you like this video, leave a comment below, click that like button, and keep on watching, subscribe. Thanks for watching, see you next time.